Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting from Norfolk Planning Board for November 29th, 2017. In compliance with the Commonwealth of Mass open meeting laws, we are being video and audio taped tonight. First, we have on the agenda 6 Sherwood Drive, which is a site plan review. We have a request for continuance from the applicant. So what I'd like to do is get a motion for somebody to continue this public hearing until our next meeting, which is December 19th at...
That's a Tuesday. Does that work for everybody?
Let me see.
I switched it from originally the 20th because the zoning board has a big meeting that night.
I'm okay with it.
Good.
December 19th at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next, before our next public hearing, we have a request to accept the cost to complete for bond reduction for Winding Hollow subdivision. It's got a bond reduction in place now of $127,913. The applicant would like it reduced to $21,319. In your package, you'll see a cost to complete analysis from beginning to current status from our engineering consulting's Beta Group, confirming that request number of $21,319 for the reduction. Anybody have any questions on this or any comments?
Did
Bob McGee check this also, but
I don't know. Did we have Bob McGee look at that?
yeah.
To the consultant,
Yeah,
because the
either one
consultant's
is
been the one to do the
generally
inspections.
okay.
That's fine.
So that being said, I'll intend a motion to approve this bond reduction to $21,319. Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All set. 7:05, we have a request to vote to extend the estate lot special permit on 32 Frederickson Road. It is looking to be extended for approximately 1 year to November 15th, 2018. I understand this lot is under agreement now. It is in the process of being reviewed for due diligence, and I think we're standardly able to do that. Anybody have any questions on the extension for 1 year for this 32 Frederickson?
No, that's fine.
Contain a motion to extend the special permit to November 15, 2018. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
7:10, we have, and these are not public hearings, so we're,
Extension letter is on that too. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome.
7:10, we have a request for Westfield Drive, which is a 2-lot subdivision off of Priscilla Road. The cost to complete amount is $18,750.
Yep.
So we have no bond on this yet?
Yes, we do.
We have a bond on it.
Yep. Hold on 1 second. We don't have any audio. Chris, we don't have any audio.
I just don't know what they're reducing the bond from. I think this is a new bond.
I don't remember.
Betsy, is this a new bond? This
This
is,
is a new bond.
all right, so what is it, a tri-party agreement? Or is it a bond?
I think it's a lender's agreement.
So there's nothing for us to execute on that, correct?
We have the lender's agreement. You just need to vote to accept that amount. And then I vote to release the 2 lots.
Where is the cost to complete?
The cost to complete should be in your packet. Bob McGee
I see it, okay.
said that those the figures were acceptable.
Discussion? In that case, we can have a motion to approve the cost to complete for Westfield Drive, 2 lots in the amount of $18,750, and release lots 8 and 16, which are the 2 lots in total.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have the form for us to sign the lot release?
We can do those later if you want, and then I
We
can
can-
get those to Chris tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have time to sign that now if you want to get out of the way. We still have 7 or 8 minutes.
No, go ahead. Is that okay with you if I
Whatever you
just,
want.
because I've got to notarize it and everything, so I don't have my stamp with it.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
All right,
Yep.
Chris, good night. Does everybody have a pen? Oh, we get your pen, John.
I do, but,
There's the lot release form and there's the lender's agreement.
all right.
You give me a pen, Betsy?
As well, right?
Let's see if pen Wilson. Wait a second.
Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. Betsy, on this site plan approval,
This is the Winding Hollow, the revised lender's agreement
Yeah,
for signatures. Just 3 copies if you don't mind.
I do, but that's all right.
yes. Betsy, on this site plan approval, we have a draft approval, and we have one with, it says Tom's comment.
Yep.
Did we do this one?
Did you highlight the comment? Is that looking for a change?
So, yeah, Tom had outlined a few comments that he had on the decisions.
Do you want to go over right now, Tom, what your comments were?
Sure, they're pretty,
You folks decide whether you want to accept these changes to the site plan approval.
These, when there's an entitlement, she wants us to sign 3 copies of this for Winding Hollow.
Are you looking at the site plan application first, decision? Or
Yes.
Those 3 is okay. The one that I had, the factual background, seemed to be off on that. There's an auto freight storage facility, so I don't know if that was,
That was, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was just
yeah,
left over from a template.
yep, no, that was that.
Page is that on?
On page 2 of 8, the factual background.
Yeah, that whole paragraph needs to be,
Yep, no, that's fine. So I just, that, near the bottom of the page, it said that The waiver is granted because the excess light is only in a few locations. It'll be generally be off by 7 p.m. The parking lot light in areas around the building, especially for an ATM or something, I think would be, or, on a bit later than 7 o'clock, especially if there's apartments up above and people have to go back and forth safely from parking a car or going upstairs with that and stuff.
That generally won't affect the illumination at the property edge, will it?
No, it won't.
No.
No. So I just there was another paragraph in there that
Yeah, somewhere else I saw it too, yeah.
yeah, I didn't want to see it limit the hours of operation to where it could affect the operation of an ATM or
It's in paragraph 6.
Mm-hmm. And basically the same comment on page 3 was just with sort of that lighting and hours of operation.
Maybe you could give Betsy some suggested language to add or
Sure. Mm-hmm.
for those 2 places.
And then on page 4, miscellaneous, number 8, a design for retaining walls stamped by a Massachusetts professional engineer. It said shall be added to the plan set, and just wanted to have that would be submitted to the building inspector with the building permit application. Because generally what happens is the site plans are approved, and then I give that to the engineers and put it out to bid to supply that wall and precast wall with it, and then they would supply with their engineer the design and review for that, and that would be submitted to the building inspector because it's over 4 feet in height in some places.
So maybe we could say added to the plan set for permit application.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And actually, I guess a little further down on number 12, and this is where I was concerned about hours of operation, and I think this was for construction operation, was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and that's where I was concerned about the ATM and then tying in with the lights and stuff and things. And then obviously 8 to 1 on Saturday. As long as those hours of operation are for construction, and that's fine on things. I just didn't want to see it limit the credit union for not being able to service people with ATM and stuff past 7 o'clock at night.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the one that I did, maybe you didn't discuss with Gino this particular condition, that you might want to make reference that 7 a.m. is 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. is 8 a.m., whereby, no equipment starting or no engines, on site, because I'm sure I've experienced that in the past, just as people like to, we're getting into the winter season, so they start things up before those times. I don't know if that's something
Okay.
might make sense to include.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm happy with the construction operation hours of like 7 to 5, something like that. That's more than enough. We wouldn't be working until 7 o'clock. I just wanted to make sure that was definitely for construction and not for the operation of the businesses.
Well, to that point, what are the hours of operation?
I'm not sure how the
Credit union,
how you'd handle that, because I don't know how many mixed-use buildings that the town has, but I mean, there'll be people living there, so there'd obviously be, that would be open 24/7, so people can egress their, apartments and things. The ATM would obviously be 24/7 too, people wanting to pull up and, make transactions and everything. So you're just dealing with maybe the actual business hours, and a lot of businesses stay open till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night and things, especially, a bank or credit union, or even maybe there's a store or something there that would be open till 9 or 10 o'clock so people could purchase something or meet something. So I would say at least from, 7 to 10, something like that. I mean, it's in downtown. I don't think anybody would stay open later than that, but at least that gives the option for different businesses. And if something comes up that needs further hours, we could always come back and ask the board to modify that, but then you'd have the discretion.
Sound reasonable?
Yep.
Comment?
Do we have written bylaws, like how late Walgreens stays open or how late Scylla stays open? I mean, do they adhere to anything that we already have written that we
I'm
just
not sure.
basically carbon copy into this?
Walgreens stays open until what, 11?
Yeah. I mean, it's all along the same,
And is the parking lot lighting regulated differently than the building lighting?
I believe so. Do you want to check on the language used in Walgreens?
I'll
We could
check
We could
on
just
that.
mirror it in this.
Yeah, and you might, maybe even suggest a separate condition related to it, so that the construction and the operational hours are separate.
Separate the operational hours
Yeah.
from construction hours.
Yeah, so they're not
Yeah,
mingle them in the same condition.
yeah,
All right, it's a good idea.
yep.
That it, Tom?
That was my concerns on the site plan decision.
Anybody have any issues on that?
Yeah, I look at 17 on page 5. We have an earth removal permit, and then we have, and there are hours of operation in that. And then we have this language, and these conflict, so we need to sort that out.
Well, isn't the earth removal permit separate from the site plan approval? Does the earth removal permit carry its own hours? I would think.
If you wish.
It does.
It does have its own,
Because it's a separate permit.
All right, okay.
but you,
If I may interject, given the traffic that's in the center of the town here and things, I mean, I wouldn't want to start any trucking or anything like that before 8 o'clock or anything anyways, or, try to keep away from that traffic in the morning,
I think the earth removal calls for 9, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
9 to 4.
which is acceptable if that's the case with it and everything. I was just saying if it could be 8, but if 9 is what the traffic is, starts to die down after in the morning, then we can live with that.
Okay.
15 addresses time as well.
Is that it? Those the changes, Tom?
That was it, just actually exactly like you just mentioned there. There was some variation in the times from further down in that paragraph in E. I think it says 9 to 3, so it should be 9 to 4, just so that they all match and coordinate.
The board will be looking at this after our public hearings and reviewing and voting to execute it, so we'll take in these amendments. I don't think anybody has any issues from what you
Just
said.
one more here. Look on page 7, item 3. I thought all stormwater was going to be captured on site, but there is some, I think, that goes out onto Union Street, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the issue was the post-runoff conditions are less than the pre-runoff conditions. So technically,
Yeah.
less is going off than is right now.
Right.
And that was the comment made in
Okay,
the
yep.
drainage study.
I'm okay.
Right there.
Yep.
All right, so Tom will review this and probably get it executed tonight.
Thank
All
you,
right.
and thank you for taking the time to listen with this and things.
You're
There
welcome.
was a couple of clarifications on the special permit, just basically some description language and things that I just think you might want to correct to make sure it corresponds with the plans. The purpose, the 6,150 square feet on page 1, that should actually be, that's the building footprint, not the square footage of the whole building. I just thought that should be clarified. And then the only other one was, there was a question on page 3, section 1.5, the proposed signage, which is actually on the tower where the address and the businesses will be listed. So just those two things to maybe help you with clarifying things.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, good, Tom.
Sweet. Road. Westfield Drive. Right, next we have a public hearing, 7:15, on 194 Main Street. Kevin, would you read the applications of record?
Absolutely. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass GL Section 40A and the Norfolk Zoning Bylaws Section F11, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, November 29th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass. Relative to a site plan application for property located at 194 Main Street in Norfolk, Mass. Assessors Map 14, Block 49, Lot 14. The applicant, Rocco Realty, LLC of Walpole, Massachusetts, is proposing the construction of 2 duplex units with associated parking and utilities. The applicant is also requesting special permits for pedestrian access, streetscape, and build to line. See section I-4A5, I-4A6, and I-4B2A. The property is located in the B1 zoning district. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
Very good. Who's representing the applicant?
I am Jamie from Senior Consulting Engineers for the record.
Microphone, that's...
I presented a letter before the start of the meeting,
Yes, you did.
and
I read that.
has a determination been made on that?
Yes, I've denied your request.
And it's duly noted in the record?
I'm sure it will be.
What reasons were the request
You don't need
denied?
a reason.
I'd like one.
You don't need a reason.
I'd like one.
Can we continue on? Thank you.
You want to start with the? Okay. You wanna put the plans up on? Yep. Perfect. Right. Again, good evening. What we have before you tonight is existing commercial site in which we're proposing 2 duplex units in the back of the existing commercial site. As situated right now, we have parking in the front, commercial building, which I believe is a breakfast restaurant type of place with a barber shop, some pavement in the back with an existing garage, and over to the side, they're off on the separate lot that we had foremade a while back in front of you. There's an existing dwelling with a garage. This being our layout plan, what we're showing on this plan is 2 duplexes. As you can see, parking spaces in front for them, utilizing a access from this side of the site to get around over to the back, and then utilizing this as for an emergency second means of egress if needed, in which we did show the fire chief to make sure that he was comfortable with it. We requested a waiver because right now, if you were to drive down there, the access is relatively steep. We're making it as best as we can, but ultimately it's going to be about, I believe it's a 10% grade. Can we go to the next? So what we found with this layout is that we're not creating any additional runoff from what's there now. There's impervious and gravel areas in the back, and so the pre and the post development conditions are very similar in nature. We did test holes on the site for septic, which we're showing conventionally. I know the Board of Health has reviewed it to some degree, not the septic, but the soils, and I believe their letter was in favor for us. Do you want to go to the landscaping plan, I guess, which is next? I believe it might be the next sheet.
Jamie, before you go on, do you
sorry.
have the calculations for retail and commercial percentages?
I believe that we may actually have them on the plan itself, but if not, I can provide those, absolutely. Yep, yeah, there's 65, 35, yep.
Right.
And we definitely adhere to those, as far as the commercial being the 35 and the
Okay.
residential being the 65.
Is that true if you were in the future to construct that other one down there?
Over in here?
Yeah.
No, no, we were looking at this as being a separate lot, in which we went to Zoning Board of Appeals and applied for a special permit for a single-family house to become a duplex. We did receive the building inspector's letter very recently, and we're looking into that. Just to,
Lou, do you mind giving the board, I don't think they have a copy of that letter, just give them an overview of what the zoning inspector commented on this Form A
Yeah,
plan?
certainly, John, happy to. Attorney Louis Cacavero for the applicant. I just today got it. I'm not sure what it's dated, because it printed out sort of funny on my machine, but I think it's relatively recent, within the last couple of days. Mr. Bullock essentially opines that the creation of the new lot for the two-family house and the corresponding relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals has created a nonconformity that's in violation of zoning. I think he is taking the position that, Jamie, is that called Lot 14-1? Is that the nomenclature on your plan?
I believe that to be correct, yes.
So by creating Lot 14-1, what he is essentially doing is taking the position under the use provisions in this district that that lot must have some commercial use on it in addition to the residential use, and in addition, there needs to be acceptable percentages, 65-35. I tried to study the question in anticipation of this coming up tonight. I frankly don't have a conclusion yet.
Okay.
And one of the things I suggested to my client is that we might consider making our presentation tonight and reserving rights on this point. We may ultimately concur with Mr. Bullock, and what we'll do is withdraw that lot line and propose the three structures on it being all one lot. And that's if we concur with him. If we
So
don't,
we should hold off on any peer review monies until you settle this?
that's probably wise. That's probably wise. That's number one. Number two, if we don't agree with him, and again, I need to study the subdivision control statute a little bit. I think there might be some exceptions in the subdivision control statute, and without getting into an awful lot of case law tonight, which I'm just simply not completely prepared to talk about, I think there may be some precedent for doing this and giving us some rights and some exceptions under the subdivision control statute, particularly the definition of what a subdivision is. So what I would propose tonight is that, you hear Jamie's presentation, talk about some of the aesthetic and other things that you folks are concerned with, rightfully, and let us reserve rights to perhaps come back with a modified plan at some point in the future. Again, it will either be modified if we concur with Mr. Bullock, or we'll come in and try to justify why we want to do it this way and respectfully suggest that Mr. Bullock is wrong. Does that summarize, I think, the issue?
Yes, the letter forwarded to you from our outside planner, Gino Carlucci, that talked about the pedestrian way issue, which is in the bylaws. So that remains an unknown, too. I had asked whether he looked in the bylaws myself. I don't think the pedestrian access is something that is waivable or a special permit to eliminate. So you might want to also talk with Bob Bullock, who has under his belt, as well as Gino, just on that issue there. When you look, the things you're looking to get special permits are all allowed in zoning and the bylaws, as you know. You have to find a way for the pedestrian access to be worked in there too, and see what he comes up with.
Okay.
Gino's not here tonight until 8:30, so, but you had a copy of his letter, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
So, and again, just the genesis of all of this was, I was asked to, many months ago, I was asked to try to figure out a way for the existing single-family to be raised and to turn it into a brand-new two-family. And I rendered the opinion that what we're essentially trying to do is create or expand the pre-existing non-conforming use. So I suggested, and my client followed my suggestion, to go to the zoning board and get a special permit with a finding that this was not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And he did that and got that finding.
Right.
And that was all predicated upon this new Lot 14-1 being created. We didn't really envision that it would be viewed by the building inspector as creating a nonconformity that violates zoning. So this is, something that's only come up in the last 24 hours or so for us to evaluate. again, we'll either concur with him or we'll respectfully oppose him. And I just, for tonight's purposes, would like to reserve the right to modify and come back. And we'll certainly address the pedestrian access issue at that time, too.
You can work it all out with the professionals there, and then you can report back to us. In the meantime, we'll just hold off on spending any applicant's money on peer review until you know definitively which way you're going, okay? But I think at this time, we'll let Jamie finish his presentation.
Follow-up question, when
Sure.
you were talking about eliminating the lot line, combining it as one site, what does that do to your percentages, residential, commercial? Do
That's
you see a lot more?
part of the analysis we'd have to do is calc it out and make sure that we comply with the 65-35. So if we, and by the way, we have not
Because right
recorded
now, you
that
already
plan.
have 65, 35, but you would not be increasing commercial, you'd only be increasing residential, right? So you're gonna go up in your residential and,
That's one of the issues.
That's one of the issues, is to make sure we comply with the calculation.
I guess my point is, if you're gonna remove the lot line to try to conform with zoning, but then you're not conforming anymore because you've now eliminated the percentages that you need to meet.
Sure, no,
Misunderstanding that.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
so
I-
we're under,
No, I
so,
understand,
that's- I wasn't familiar with what the calculation
That's why
presently
those
is,
are
we're
so-
under
Does
presently.
it say in the plan, Jamie, those percentages as they stand now?
Can you go back, Betsy? I
Because we
believe
could certainly
two
add one more
sheets.
duplex into the percentage and see if it works as it is.
But don't you have to add the existing house into it too? Because that
Not
is
if he's
factored.
tearing it down.
Oh, he's, oh, and
I
that-
think the intent is to tear the single family and build a duplex.
I
So
see.
Yes, that was,
if you
that's-
know what the percentages are now, see if you could fit another duplex onto that
Can you go to the
ratio.
cover sheet
That's good.
for me, Betsy? Sheet one, please. Thank you.
He's got 60, he's got 35, 65 right now. He can get more.
He thinks he's under, so see if you can find the percentages there.
Yeah. I'm not seeing them on this, so we will
Are
we'll
these like
provide those.
2,000 square foot?
That sounds,
Units?
they're smaller than that, aren't they? 1,300.
Each one is, so you got 5,000 roughly in 5,000 in residential?
That sounds about, let me look at,
They don't have to figure it out now. They just,
Okay, just curious.
point being, it may be a good point to even explore that option if,
3,900 square feet of commercial, about 5,200 square feet of residential.
so 32 and 52?
65% of 91, which allows you to put a fifth duplex
Yeah.
the same size.
Yeah,
So maybe the numbers work with the third.
I believe that they
Okay.
do.
Okay.
So, but we'll provide calculations for,
Okay,
you know,
good.
Yeah.
moving
Yeah,
forward,
yeah, okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Can we go back to the landscaping plan, please? I think that was sheet 5 or 6. Yeah, 5. Beautiful. All right. So as you can see, what we're doing, if you're familiar with the site right now, lots of gravel. Yeah, it could use some improvements, and that's what we're hoping to do. We're providing some lawn and landscape area, some trees, some shrubbery, looking to clean up some of the asphalt areas, and make it really kind of a nice place to look. One of the concerns has always been the retaining wall over in here. It's in failure. We have it supported, by direction of a structural engineer, but our goal is to take the wall out and to actually do a one-to-one riprap, which is a long-term solution. That we
That's
don't have to
actually
really
part
worry
of the
about
building inspector's letter that I gave your attorney, that
Correct.
wall will go through his process, so he's happy with that structurally.
Yep, yeah, I saw that he commented on it on the latest letter, and we did. We want to take care of that as part of this plan.
Okay.
I believe the next sheet is erosion control, which I don't think. I'm more than happy to talk about it. So this plan, we basically were proposing silt fence on the lower side as an erosion control mechanism. We have construction entrance to make sure that the tires from the construction vehicles are, the materials kicked off before entering onto the pavement and creating any mess in Main Street itself. We show dewatering areas if we do need to actually dewater, and proposed stockpile areas also to help alleviate potential siltation off-site. And I believe with our catch basins on site, we actually talked about putting silt sacks in as well as a form of protection. And then the last sheet in the set would be construction details, catch basin details, or pavement details that we would typically look to, to see incorporated into the site.
Is that metal shed coming down as part of this whole
As part of
process?
this plan, the shed is
Yeah, I
proposed to
think
come
we saw
down.
that on the
Yep.
earlier version. Yeah, coming down.
So, again, as we've already discussed, we know we have some stuff to look at. So we need to regroup and take a look at this and find out exactly which direction we're gonna go in. But we didn't want to cancel tonight. We wanted to get some feedback,
Right.
feeling from the board, try to address any major concerns, and then take that back and, regroup and figure out which way we're gonna move forward. So if you have any comments or concerns.
Did you say at the beginning that what'd you say about the drainage at the beginning? Let's put that.
Great question. What we said was that right now, when we've modeled the system, and we submitted the drainage calcs, when we model the flow off-site in pre-development versus post-development, we're not ending up with an increase in rate, which is what typically requires basins or something along those lines. The back of the site right now, if you were to go, which I know most of you have been back there, gravel, there's a lot of pavement. We're going to be ripping up some areas of pavement. We're putting in some new areas of pavement as well. But overall, when we're done between grass, loam and seed, improvements, vegetation, the runoff off-site is calculated to be less than what is presently running off
Yeah,
now.
so there's less impervious surface.
There's going to be less runoff. That's
Yeah,
correct.
less runoff.
Of a rate. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I just have to say, in general, it feels awkward to me. It feels like a parking lot with a commercial building with some houses stuck in the back behind it in the middle of a parking lot. So I'm talking purely from a design perspective and from just sort of a use. I mean, I know it may be an allowable use, and that's what we're trying to get judgment on. It just feels awkward to me, and I apologize. I don't know how to say that in a more constructive way. I think you need a whole lot more than just a few trees. If the thing is going to fly, like, you need to majorly landscape back there. I just think there's a tremendous amount of development that's going to need to be done to make this feel appropriate as a residential place to live, as a new addition to our town. I have great concerns.
Just a question, Jamie, general questions, twofold. Is any other development planned on the area to the right of that site where you're taking down that shed?
I don't believe there's any immediate plan. Am I correct with that? There's nothing, we don't have anything.
It might help the board if they had an overall gist of how it's going to be.
Sure, and that's why we're showing what we were planning with the lot to the left-hand side. I know the board's always asked, you're a planning board, you like the plan.
Right.
And that's why we showed it, and I know it caused quite a bit of confusion, the lot on the left, which we've tried to clarify. We put it shaded so that everybody could see what our intention was. As of right now, no, we don't have a definitive intention for anything to the right-hand side.
In the basic question of this, I guess the common question would be, why aren't those residential units on top of the commercial, which is basically what the zoning is about?
Sure. Yep, no, I
Can you answer
understand.
that question?
The zoning's-
Yeah, I'm not,
The zoning gives you options.
Well, the zoning gives you options with special permit, but the way it is now, all these special permits, if this was on top of the commercial, let me speak, please. If this was on top of the commercial, you would eliminate some of those special permits. And
Exactly what special permit would I eliminate?
you would eliminate the setback from the frontage line.
That's not correct. I couldn't comply with that.
Well, if you're on an existing building and you're going on top of it, you've already complied with your grandfather.
That's, on a new development, it says 6 to 19 feet. The building doesn't comply.
I understand, but right now you've got the building there, so if you're going above it.
I wouldn't ever consider ripping the roof off existing tenant
Just-
building to
I
put two
asked the
floors
question
on.
because it's
The
not-
option on if I could finish, sir, the option is that the zoning allows you to do either or. It doesn't steer you in one direction.
I never said it didn't. I just said that in one case it needs a special permit, and in one case it doesn't, that's all. That's all I said. And these are general questions on any site development that any common person would ask, that's all.
This is what I've requested.
I understand, I understand. Other questions, Walter?
No, I've seen the plan before.
The grade of that access road, the 10% grade, is that within our towns or the limits and with regards to emergency access and everything like that?
You know, Rich, is that within the grade requirement for access road?
I'd have to,
There's a letter in the file from the fire chief saying it's sufficient.
Okay.
This is a zoning thing rather than
Yeah.
fire
Okay.
chief thing.
Yeah, you did weigh in on that.
Yeah.
I made mention of the fire chief because you referred to public safety.
Any other questions? All right, so we will continue this till our next meeting, December 19th, and we can put this on at 7:15. And hopefully by then, Lou, you've got the answers, so you can decide which way to move forward. All right. Motion to continue this public hearing, 194 Main Street, to December 19th at 7:15.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, next we have Cranberry Heights, continued special permit hearing for open space.
Oh, this is the one across the street from the pool.
So previously, no one's had a chance to look at the plans. We just got them this evening. I haven't looked at them at all, but why don't you just go over the plan, the changes, if you could, Steve, and we can take it from there next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what I'd like to do, since it was a point of discussion at the last
See,
meeting.
we have no plans here. Do you have any paper copies?
Any paperwork on this?
He sent them to us by wire, that's how I got my thing.
Not that. Yes,
Yeah, I thought we weren't reviewing plans like that on the day. Yes.
That's fine, that's good, that's good. Thank you. Rich and I can share that.
So I think this is a good place to start. It's the first sheet on the printed set. It's the sheet on the screen here. It's the revised preliminary plan, which we call the yield plan. It generates the yields, the number of lots we could get under conventional methods in compliance with your subdivision regulations. So as you can see, we're able to provide a closed turnaround at the end in compliance with your subdivision regs and still get the number of lots we were seeking, which we used to generate in our open space concept plan. Not a lot of changes on this plan other than that. We just made some tweaks around the perimeter lots, and we're fortunate enough to make that work out. So might be a good time to go to the conceptual open space plan.
Can we, before we do that, can we stick with that for a second?
Sure, happy to.
Put it back. Last time we touched on this, Michelle raised an issue about that half of the land was really not buildable per some conservation restriction, and therefore the yield plan could really only be put together on the basis of roughly half the land, as I recall. Is that right, Michelle?
Yep.
Well, it was a comment. You know, it was an inquiry probably more than anything, if that was the case.
Well, I think the question really is the assumption on which she based that comment valid or not?
Not in my opinion. It's
I
not.
understand, but we need to think about that on our
On the
side.
basic of, just have a question, just on the basis of subdividing this now, can you do this without any waivers, special permits, payments, anything that, so this is by right what you can do? I think
This-
that was the question.
Yep, this is by right. And I think what Walter was referring to was a portion of the property that's mapped priority habitat.
Right,
Yeah.
you said you couldn't use half of that.
I didn't say that.
I thought you did.
No, I think Michelle was inquiring if the half that is mapped habitat could
Oh, I
be
thought-
built upon.
I may be confused, and I thought you had said at the meeting that natural heritage would only allow you to develop half of the property for habitat, and if in lieu of that, you could make payments.
That's correct. So they would like for the project not to be considered what they call a take. They would like half of it to be provided as open space.
Right.
If we cannot provide that, then there are other mitigation methods that natural heritage would impose.
Right.
If all other options, like land banking and other forms of land preservation, are not an option, then the last one is a financial contribution, and those negotiations start at about $10,000 an acre.
Which gets me to my first question. So to build this plan as is, you can't do it without a payment to natural heritage.
In
I
theory,
think
yep.
that's, I think, was that your question, was that the context of your question last time?
Yeah, and, you know, whether or not is going that route, like the process of going that route, it sort of feels like very black and white to you to end in that conclusion that we'll just pay him. I'm not quite sure if it ends up that way, I guess.
Well,
I'm not that familiar with the process.
Does it not end up,
but
complying with the rules and regs as he described it by the fact that the open space layout, which you'll get to in a couple of sheets here, does offer half the land as
It does.
space?
Yep.
Right, but what we were trying to do is base how many units.
The open
off
space
of
is based on the yield plan,
Yeah.
which you can do by right.
Right, so I don't know if just because you pay them is enough reason to be a mitigating factor to say, yeah, we should be able to build on it, right? I don't know their process well enough for them
Yeah.
to impose, no, we won't allow a payment because you have the space. You could leave the space open and preserve the habitat. I don't know, I don't look to become an expert on it.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's really outside the purview of this board. I mean, there are agencies throughout the state and within the community that have their own jurisdiction and responsibilities.
Yeah.
I totally understand your question. It's something that comes up from time to time on projects. If you can build it, that's going to be expensive. You know, those aspects are not in the criteria for determination of whether this is a valid plan. It's very clear in the bylaw what needs to be provided to demonstrate what lots could be yielded from a conventional plan. And I'm confident that we've met that. In fact, I'm confident we've gone above and beyond.
Actually not that clear, and as a result, I had the new planner, Rich, go into our bylaws and research this exact subject. So I'm going to let Rich tell you what he found out. So, Michelle, okay.
Okay.
So in section H2E1A, which is the first process identifying delineated resource areas, I guess the question you need to really kind of answer, because it does say resource areas regulated by state or federal law, including wetlands and floodplains. So I think that provision is broad enough that you need to kind of clarify that it doesn't apply, to presume it doesn't apply.
Well, they've been delineated. We've got wetlands delineated. We've got the mapped habitat delineated. We've got, there is no...
No, I mean, I think we need to clarify is that the protected area, the species area that natural heritage is having jurisdiction over, doesn't qualify as a resource area. Because in your yield plan, you got to presume that it doesn't qualify. Because you need that area to make your yield plan, to get your number of lots. You know, does that make sense what I'm saying? In addition to the other area, and
That's yours.
you have area that are jurisdictional with the wetlands and the riverfront. You have that in your yield plan on the lower portion there.
Yep.
You're gonna, I mean, we can discuss this a little bit further, but I think you need to take that out, because you're doing a new plan post-1996 when the River Protection Act came in.
Right, but we'd have, under the Rivers Protection Act, we'd have the right to disturb up to 10%.
So you have, that's just 10% that you're disturbing?
Well, just because the back of the lot goes into the riverfront doesn't mean we'd even be disturbing it. We could do the lot development and not even go in the riverfront area or the 100-foot buffer. That's the beauty, I think, of the open space design. To be honest with you, even this design, but preferably the open space design, is that we take all of the natural features and the sensitive areas into consideration on the open space design.
Probably not.
Right.
The merit of the open space stands on itself, makes sense, right? But it's the yield that you get to get to the open space plan that really
Right. Last time, at the last meeting, I suggested, or asked, that based on the setbacks, I wanted a foundation footprint put on the plan, right with the top of elevation. And I wanted to show the grading in the back, because what you have, we have a 3-to-1 slope regulation on excavation on new sites.
Yep.
And all of this area down here where it slopes like that, you have to show, and it's also part of the riverfront and the habitat area, you have to show that you can put a house on there with a proper elevation and excavate that and still end up with a slope that's 3-to-1 or less. That was my request at the last meeting, because all of these along the back here, where they go down, where do they go down, 40 feet or so?
Yeah, I mean, I
Just have to make sure, Steve, that those work, that's all.
those are large lots.
I understand.
There's no doubt in my mind, and I know with your building experience, John, that you know that those are buildable lots.
All I'm asking you is to put the footprint of the house on there with the top of foundation and show the grading. And we're going to make sure that you're not creating things like this that's against zoning.
I'm not saying that it's not possible, but I'm saying that's a lot of work, way above and beyond your bylaw requirements.
It is.
You're asking me to, I'd have to prepare road profiles for a yield plan that would then result in grading of the lots to show lot development for a plan, we don't intend to build.
Well, you're building all along here.
Not in this configuration. On the open space configuration, it's similar, but you'll notice on the open space plan when we get there that the lots aren't even in the buffer zone.
So you don't have any grading issues in the open space plan? Why don't we get to that plan?
Sure.
next
Yep.
time?
There's grading that shows up on.
So you're going to be within the slope requirement, right?
Yes, sir. So the next sheet, which is the conceptual plan, doesn't have any grading, but I just want to touch on something there because I added this sheet to the mix. So the grading on the overall plan kind of really cluttered the plan, so I broke it out. But it's important to note that I added the build factor of these open space lots, and I think it's very important to note that the build factors here are less, significantly less than the build factors under the conventional by right subdivision, which, if by its own terminology, build factor, these lots are better configured, etc.
No, I agree with you. I'm looking at this open space plan. I don't see that you, without doing any homework, I don't see how you have any grading issue putting those in.
So the next sheet.
The next sheet shows the.
The next sheet shows shows grading, and we discussed at the last meeting our challenges with some of the existing topography, and it was resulting in upwards of 100,000 cubic yards of net cut. And I had indicated that I thought we could get that down to about 50. And I had explained to you how we were having challenges with road grades due to meeting ADA compliance, Mass Access Board compliance due to some recent stuff. I'm not sure if Richard has some experience with that, not to get on a tangent. But so what you're looking at here for grading is actually an 8% grade up to the leveling grade at the intersection, and then we've got all grades less than 5% on this road that ties into Eagle Drive. And with some, because this is the high point of the lot, we focused some lot grading really in that area and in this area, as you can see. And I'm happy to report that this is significantly better from an earthwork standpoint. We're down to about 32,500 cubic yards of net cut, much of which I think can be utilized on site. So, this yields a better scenario from an earthwork standpoint, but we've got a section of 8% road starting here that comes up and levels off at the intersection, so that's where we face that potential.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Show folks what an 8% pitch is.
Well, a handicap ramp with railings is 8.33. So, everyone who has walked up a handicap ramp, that's 8.33, 1 in 12, 1 foot in 12 feet or 1 inch in 12 inches. So, for a short run, it doesn't seem so bad, but 8% on a road is standard max centerline grade. You get to places like Worcester, they allow up to 12. If anyone's driven through Worcester, you probably know what a 12% road is. So, we don't like to see things, much more than 8, between 8 to 10.
Do you, Rich, find what is our maximum grade allowed on a subdivision road? Do you know?
I believe it's 10 on a residential road, which would be 7 or less lots.
So you're still within our regs here.
Yeah, and because we have more than 7 lots here, we comply with I think it's a secondary road, which would be max of 8%. So we're at the max for this classification of road.
So in some of those contour lines where you've had a grade there, what is the slope of those grades?
Those are 3 to 1.
3 to 1, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So what is the total earth removal down to then if you do this plan?
32,000.
So it's over on the right there, up in the top.
Yep, 32.5 to be a little more precise.
Okay.
And that's without, earth to construct a stormwater basin. That's without, using some material around house foundations for some fine grading and landscaping. We're confident that a good sizable portion of that 32 could be repurposed on site, knowing that it's good material. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We've got a definitive. Hopefully, we've got a definitive subdivision phase ahead of us where we can have a lot of these conversations again. We want to get to that definitive stage. We want to know from the board that you prefer the open space layout versus the conventional layout. You see the benefits. I think it's fantastic that we're able to accommodate the sensitive areas, the areas on the site that have been disturbed from prior earth removal activities. A substantial portion, probably 75% of the open space is currently undisturbed land and will remain that way. And it's great that that is part of the estimated habitat area that can also be preserved. So I think this comes together really well, given the circumstances of the land. And I guess we hope you agree. I know you have some questions still about the validity of the yield plan, and I guess all I can say to that is I can get some correspondence from Natural Heritage, Mass Wildlife, which I was hoping to get for this meeting, but wasn't successful.
Maybe you get it by the time we come back with the peer review results, so we can go over it then.
Yeah, I expect that won't be a problem. But
any questions from board members? I know we haven't seen the plans yet, but any general questions on?
It's really an improvement in terms of cut and fill volumes, significant improvement.
Yep, we agree.
That's
I think definitive stage, if we feel as though the accessibility issue along sidewalks, I think we touched on them at the last meeting, that seems as though collectively we'd be willing to, think outside the box, whether it's, terminating the sidewalks where the road exceeds 5% and limiting the pavement of the sidewalk, but having a slightly wider travel lane with, I've seen scenarios where, you stripe You provide essentially a striped walkway, so there's a shoulder of the traveled way that's striped, that acts as a walking lane. You see biking lanes in a lot of communities, so it'd be similar. I think there's a lot of things we can do kind of outside the box to address that issue, if we think it's an issue. Like I said, I had experience in another community. For the first time, it was interesting to get that opinion from Mass Access Board.
Questions, Bob? Any other?
I'll send that to you, Rich, because
Okay, yeah.
I had sent it, following the last meeting, I had sent it out, but you've come on board since, so.
Any folks in the audience here for this public hearing? Any questions? Just take a microphone.
Mike Judici, Eagle Drive. At the last hearing, Mr. Chair, we submitted a letter from the residents of Eagle Drive, and Cranberry Meadow was signed by the majority of the residents, requesting that the board request the applicant to look at sort of disconnecting the two roads so that you would in fact have just an extension of Eagle Drive as a cul-de-sac, and then the stub coming off of Cranberry Meadow as another cul-de-sac. Didn't seem like it would be a significant change. Didn't seem to result in a reduction of the number of lots, but it would maintain the existing cul-de-sacs that are out there today that we all enjoy and were one of the main reasons why we bought our properties in the first place. I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to consider that and if that could be a point of discussion.
I personally, Mike, talked to the police chief, and he is in favor of connecting everything for safety reasons. I know that we've had this discussion with actually the subdivision coming up, which is a much smaller one, but I think, and I'm going to let the board speak on that to you while you're here, I think some folks have some strong objections to making further connections for safety reasons and waiving some of the regulations. But Walt, you want to just give your thoughts?
Well, I'm certainly of that opinion that for public safety reasons, we should indeed connect through and not put the two extensions into cul-de-sacs. So it's no more complicated than that. Just for public safety reasons, I believe we should connect them as it's shown here.
Anybody else?
And the standard in the bylaw is written to connect both for safety, but also from a planning model and planning perspective of connectivity of towns, connectivity of neighborhoods. So I know there have been recent developments where we haven't done it, but it's because one of those two has been compromised, either from a safety aspect, it doesn't improve safety, or from a connectivity. For instance, Norway Farms is coming up. It's such a tiny connection. It's not, I mean, these are big neighborhoods that we're looking to connect. So the benefit is truly evident here from a planning model. And that's the reason the bylaw is written that way. So it's both from a safety as well as just good planning principles, which I know can be hard to understand when you're living on a cul-de-sac, but it really does enrich neighborhoods and enrich sort of the experience. And I know that's talking from a planning kind of mentality, but that's the reasons why I'm in favor of it.
And while it is, when you purchase your property, and other people on Cranberry Meadow Road as well, there were connections there indicating that future development could engender additional roads, and it's not unreasonable to expect that they would be connected.
Understood, but if there's an opportunity not to connect them, and I hear what you're saying, and I understand your points. You talk about these being big neighborhoods. They really aren't. I think there are 12, 14 houses on Cranberry Meadow and 5 on Eagle Drive. I don't see how. Can you just describe a little bit how?
Eagle Drive connects to Brett's Farm, and Brett's Farm
Right.
connects down. I mean, it's very interconnected the way. Whereas, for instance, Norway Farms is just a horseshoe. That's it. There's no other fabric of the town coming into that development at all. This is a much broader network, if you will.
That's fine with Norway Farms. Can we talk about Frederickson, which is certainly a much longer, bigger cul-de-sac that I would think would be a much bigger public safety issue, because that's probably 3 times as long as Cranberry Meadow Road, and in that case...
I don't want to go over all the past decisions, but I'll give you a little bit of information just for your benefit, since you're nice enough to ask. Frederickson Road, we determined, first of all, one of the cul-de-sacs is in compliance with the regulation. Frederickson Road, which was grandfathered, was over 2,000 feet, and we added 200 feet to that. And the main reason there was no connectivity is because we were funneling a 24-foot wide road into an 18-foot road all at once. And Frederickson is made up of perhaps 5, 6 blind curves. So the board determined when they decided not to connect that, because Mountain View was in compliance with the regs, Frederickson was grandfathered for the safety issue, that we decided that we would let that not connect. But that was the thinking behind that one.
So from a neighborhood connectivity, I fully agree it would have greatly benefited, but that was one from the public safety aspect. It actually would have made it worse, not better. So it has to, you know, kind of weigh on one of those.
Any other questions? All right, so, Cindy?
I had one follow-up.
Sure.
For this. So, you know, the reason why I was focusing on the yield plan so much was because, of course, you know, that's going to dictate how many lots you're going to try and get in the open space. I'm fully in favor of the open space, and I love all the mitigating factors that it's resulting in. What I am looking to do, though, is also do the right number of lots, regardless of what the yield can give us. And that was one of the big reasons, is, you know, I don't want to just jam as many, and I know from a developer, you want to do that, right? You want to get yield as much as you can. I understand that. But I do wonder if one more look-see, particularly at maybe, you know, I like the way this is laying out better in terms of houses addressing the street, housing addressing their neighbors for the most part. I think the lots that still give me some concern is, you know, so 14, I hate that driveway, I hate that, the entrance coming in there. And again, it's kind of that awkward corner where it's meeting the Cranberry Meadow people. I mean, maybe it could work. That one causes me a little bit of concern. Some of the grades down in, you know, 10, 20 cause me a little bit of concern. I've always that pie-shaped lot 22. So, I mean, if we can lose a lot or two and greatly improve on how these houses sit on the site and in relation to their neighbors, I guess I'm asking, regardless of the yield plan, would that be considered? That's sort of where I sit with this final layout. I really like the way it's coming along. I love the improvements you've made, but I think it could just use maybe a little more tweak.
I think my initial response, I can't necessarily speak for all of the fine aspects about the feasibility and things like that. Land development is a very expensive endeavor and very risky endeavor.
I understand.
As part of the open space, you probably are aware that 2 affordable units have to be provided.
Yep.
So if you add those into the model, financial model, you know, it increases the risk and you know,
But I want it to be fully sustainable in all ways. I want it to fit the land well.
Yep.
As well.
I think maybe some slight reconfigurations, like just for top of my head, you know, lot 17 looks pretty reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But if we are able to take a little bit of that and make 14, go down the line, make 14 better, just little things that might have a positive domino effect, things, you know, we can look at. You know, and I totally appreciate all your input. It's always valuable. In the definitive stage, we're going to pull our sleeves up and get into all of those fine engineering aspects.
Great.
At this point, we're really looking to know if we've got a project here, which direction we want to go in. You know, this is real topography, which costs money, wetlands, survey, more than the average amount of work, and not that it maybe wasn't necessary for us to, you know, have these conversations, but more than the average amount of expense and work has gone into this project so far. At the applicant's risk, he understands that.
Well, it's probably because of the nature of the topography as well.
Yep. It was important to know that this could work for him as well. So, you know, it's mutually beneficial. You know, I won't deny that.
One other thought, the 8% grade road there, Is it the best we can do? Can we even cut it back a couple of percent? Is there some way to make it less of a slope?
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance there. You know, I
Yeah.
think getting this area of the site being the highest, getting that point, this intersection to be the highest it can be,
Yeah.
is what's really gonna reduce the amount of cut. Making that happen is climbing this hill as fast, as high as we can. So if this goes to 7, then every 100 feet horizontally, we're gonna go down a foot. Every percent, we're gonna go down a foot. That foot, I'm not sure what that foot yields on a material level. That foot might equal
Adds it up.
2,500 yards.
Yeah, it adds up.
But it adds up, so there's a balance. At the end of the day, if we're at 6.5% and it was 50,000 yards, is that satisfactory to the board? Those are the questions I think
Yeah. What do you think, John?
in more detail.
What is the grade of Cranberry Meadows Road as you go up that?
The slope, it's about 4.5%. It actually shows on the profile on the next
So if you
page.
go to Cranberry Meadows Road and drive up there, this will be twice as steep.
In the 4.5% section I'm referring to is right here, is just this little leg of existing Cranberry.
As you come off of Lawrence Street?
No, that's
as you
just
come off of,
the
yeah,
dead
you're
end,
already on
the stone.
Cranberry
What is
Meadows. You're talking about the section that comes off Lawrence?
Yeah, that's where you've got the
Yeah,
steeper
that's a
slope.
good climb there. Any guesses, Howard, on
Give
that
us a
slope?
reference, that's all.
I've driven it, but
We can go,
probably 6 to 7. I would agree.
we can go check that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I can,
I think if we put in perspective what exactly an 8% slope looks like, then better make a decision.
Yep.
And where the balance is between that and earth removal.
yeah, well, I think 8%, if I'm not mistaken, coming up Maple Street into Fox Run subdivision. I think that's deepest we hit 8%.
I think this driveway coming right up into the town hall is probably close to 8%.
I think it is too.
Yep, I would agree.
I think it is too.
Good example.
Okay, so
Good
we can,
example.
we can
Yep.
look into that for the next
Okay,
meeting.
understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, so for the next meeting, we'll have the peer review folks come back and update the plan you submitted, and we're on for the December 19th, 7:30, Betsy. Good motion to extend to that time? Continue?
I move to continue the public hearing for Cranberry Heights to December 19th at what'd you say, 15? 7:30.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some significant progress there, John.
This was the project that needed to work with the Lawrence Street, right, to bring water down?
What's that again?
Was this the project that needed to work with the Placido to bring water
No
down?
water. So he's waiting for Abbeville to bring the water line down.
So are they just gonna wait on Abbeville?
Well, they're
Or
gonna
are they
need a
gonna work
decision.
together?
They can't get any permits until they've got water there servicing their site, so that's gonna be in the decision if we approve this and when, so. Next, we have public hearing for Norway Farms. Do you have that application there, Kevin?
Yep, sure do.
The Norway Farms folks here?
All right. In accordance with the Town of Norfolk zoning bylaws, the Planning Board rules and regulations, and MGL Chapter 40A, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 29, 2017, at 7:45 p.m. in Room 124 in the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass., on the application of Norway Realty Trust for approval of a definitive open space preservation subdivision plan entitled Norway Farms. Plans by United Consultants, Rentham, Mass., dated September 26, 2017, located at 33 Medway Street. The subdivision is proposed to have 14 lots, see Assessor's Map 8, Block 38, Lot 34, in the R1 zoning district. There are also applications for a stormwater management permit, earth removal permit, and a Shade Tree Act hearing request, for which public hearings will be held concurrently.
Thank you. All set, Rick?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. For the record, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants. Here this evening are Rob and Jean Kane, owners of the property at 33 Medway Street, as well as the applicant's attorney, Elizabeth Maitland. Mr. Chairman, I do have copies of the plans if the board members would like those to follow along.
Could you put a set on the table?
Sure. We have some 11 by 17. People would like those.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks, Rick.
A couple of little overview sketch plans as well.
Thank you.
Make it a little easier, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, please. Mr. Chairman? So as the board recalled earlier this year, the applicants had come in with the proposal to construct an open space preservation development on this property. The board had public hearings on that matter and ultimately issued a special permit to allow that to happen. So now we have moved into the definitive subdivision design stage for this project, and we basically remained, the roadway system has remained, the lot systems have remained as proposed, and we've basically gone into the process of designing the development from an engineering standpoint with respect to stormwater, construction details, landscaping, etc. So the project consists of approximately 875-foot roadway, which terminates in a cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac has a through connection via a proposed 16-foot wide emergency access road with the existing Crestbrook Road cul-de-sac. The water main is proposed to come into the development to service the houses and provide fire protection, and to ultimately make the connection excuse me, with Crestbrook Road. 3 fire hydrants are proposed along the route for the fire protection, and also at the low point of the roadway for the DPW cleaning of the water main system. The lots will have water connections for domestic water supply and septic systems, which are proposed and shown schematically on these lots. Betsy, could you go to the next page, please? So, as the board may recall, there were discussions with respect to super elevating the road, which would be to pitch it to one side, create some water quality swales to capture the stormwater runoff from the roadway system, which has been accomplished, as you can see here on these frontage lots. Ultimately, it will be directed to a sediment forebay for additional TSS removal, and then ultimately it discharges into a rain garden where the stormwater will further be treated with the plantings proposed, as well as infiltrated into the ground. So as you can see here, we've done the stormwater system. We do have an extensive landscaping plan, which I have not shown due to clarity, is included in the plan set. The landscaping plan shows compliance with the town subdivision regulations with respect to street tree plantings. Additionally, there's plantings proposed in and around specific areas along the lot lines as required by the special permit excuse me, for an open space development. The applicant worked with a landscape designer on those components, and we've provided those plans, as I said, in the packet. We do have a proposed trail system that we've talked about at the special permit hearing. The trail will come up between these two lots here turn, come up in this area here, and that will provide some pedestrian access connection from the proposed development as well as the Crestbrook development up to the Canterbury Road area, as you can see located there to the south of
What
the
about
property.
off Medway Street in that zigzag there?
In here, we did not propose any trails. We do have proposed in that area the turnoff with the mailbox system and the school bus area that we had talked about, the school bus shelter.
It seems unnatural, though, to put a trail there to access the rest of it, if you can. If you were to do that, just hypothetically, can you get around the corner there without?
On this corner?
Yeah, without stepping on private property, without getting wet?
You'd be well within the buffer zone, and it's fairly steep in that area. There's actually, you know, a very steep slope coming down into the lake itself.
Yeah.
We've got two sensitive wetland areas located there to the south that we prefer not to have, you know, much activity.
Fair enough, but so eventually, essentially, rather, that chunk of open space is really not usable, so this.
Well, you know, it's accessible over in this area. We have.
No, I understand that, but I'm just talking about the zigzag chunk down in there. I mean,
Well, this
yeah,
piece?
Yeah, you really can't get at it.
Oh, there's the ability to.
There's no trail, though. You're not putting a trail in there.
No, but we could mark the area. I mean, we could.
Okay, all
We could
right.
mark it with a, you know, an entrance point.
Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Keep
Okay.
going. Keep
Take a
going.
canoe.
So, as I had said, we are proposing a turnout with a mailbox, central mailbox location here to satisfy the postmaster, and a school bus shelter is proposed at the intersection of Medway Street and the proposed roadway, which is actually now a four-way intersection with Tucker Road. Additionally, we had requested that we only provide one sidewalk within the development. We're providing a sidewalk on the easterly side of the roadway. That terminates in this location here for the trail access. Also, pedestrian access could be over the 16-foot emergency access road that's being proposed. So to offset the elimination of one sidewalk, we've proposed a sidewalk connection from Crestbrook Road, which we've highlighted here, traveling down Medway Street and terminating at close to the intersection of Lake Street. That sidewalk will be within a proposed, an existing, 5-foot easement that was set aside at the Crestbrook Road development, and then through some construction easements that were left when these three lots were created and taken out of the original parcel. And then it'll be within the right-of-way as it terminates down here towards Lake Street. We've located large trees and stone walls, attempted to minimize the amount of tree clearing that would be necessary, and we've meandered the sidewalk behind some trees to minimize that. I don't have it in front of me, but we have provided you with a list of street trees along Medway Street that are proposed to be removed for the purposes of the sidewalk construction. Additionally, there's some trees within this existing roadway layout area here at the end of Crestbrook Road that was accepted by the town. So to just be cautious, we proposed those as street tree removal as well, public shade tree removal, included those in the application. We have proposed for Cape Cod berm curbing. The outlets are proposed, which would consist of an asphalt area that would be 5 feet wide. There's a detail, provided that shows that those areas would terminate at a 1 foot by 1 foot by 5 foot long, 3/4 inch crushed stone leader trench, backed up by a 4 to 6 inch angular rock trench to help dissipate the velocities of the stormwater as it comes off the roadway, capture some of the roadway sands that may exist before the stormwater gets into the trench system. So that would preserve the roadway shoulder where obviously driveways are and those areas for leak-offs are located. There would not be any curbing, but the remainder of the roadway would have Cape Cod berm. We are proposing granite curbing at the entrances and at the excuse me, cul-de-sac area. So I believe those are the highlights, and certainly answer any questions the board or the audience may have. And Attorney Maitland has a brief presentation as well. I don't know if the board would prefer to hear that, or get into the questions.
Why don't we have Ms. Maitland give us her presentation?
Sketch of the bus stop. Do you need to see that? Oh, thank you. Sure. Good evening.
Thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Maitland. I'm helping Norway Farms with their legal documents. And one of the things we'd like to talk about before we talk about what's being passed out to you is at your August meeting, you had spent a bit of time discussing the concept of the open space in this subdivision being owned by a homeowners association. I had sent along several weeks ago a draft of a homeowners association, and we're hoping that you might be receptive to that idea. Our thoughts on that are that we would suggest that the homeowners association, obviously to be owned and managed by all the lot owners within the subdivision, are in the best position and will have the keenest interest in maintaining the property, in maintaining the open space and keeping it mowed, keeping it maintained. The association would also like to take the responsibility for the maintenance of the street trees. Obviously, as you probably know, Rob Kane has a very long history with tree care, and would like to take the responsibility, make sure they're well maintained, seeded, fertilized as needed, and such. We would suggest in the homeowners association document that we would initially provide for the planning board to have some input and approval of all expenditures from the open space maintenance fund set up within the homeowners association until such time that the homeowners association is fully vested, with some compliance authority as well, so that in the event the homeowners association is not in fact complying with the open space management plan to the satisfaction of the planning board, that there would be a provision that you would give them notice of the things that you don't think are being done in accordance with the open space maintenance plan, give them an opportunity to cure the defect, and then some compliance authority if you are amenable to that. I honestly don't know how the open space maintenance fund that I've seen in other subdivisions works in the town. I assume that the town has complete control over that. I don't know if the planning board has the authority to dictate how those funds are used or when they need to be used if there's a feeling that it's not being maintained properly. But I do suggest that this type of situation would be a win-win for the town, in that the homeowners association, who have a very keen interest in maintaining the property as best as possible to protect their property values and the integrity of the beautiful open space, and the town would, in essence, have the authority to ensure compliance with the open space maintenance plan. I think it's a good situation, and I would draft that agreement, a compliance agreement, in accordance with your wishes as to what your authority would be, when you would notify them if you felt there was no compliance with the open space maintenance plan. We would also suggest then that the $2,000 per lot that the planning board seeks for the open space lots would be initially paid into that fund. The reason being, the homeowners association will, of course, have to maintain liability insurance. There are some liability issues in this open space. There's some very steep grades. Obviously, the maintenance of the trails would have to be done satisfactorily to keep liability at bay, and there would be property tax. So it would remain on the tax revenues of the town, and the homeowners association would then, of course, be assessed and have to pay those taxes. So we would initially suggest that the funding of the $2,000 per lot go into the homeowners association to fund those liabilities and to fund the maintenance. Obviously, with the homeowners association, there are ongoing annual fees with the association that would be assessed every year based on the needs of the association. They could assess as they deem necessary for capital improvements, for repairs to the open space, to the street trees. We sort of feel that it's a win-win, and we hope that you feel the same way and would approve this concept of the open space in this instance being owned by the homeowners association with some compliance authority in the hands of the planning board or whomever you designate would be the compliant agent. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd be very willing.
Could I just ask you a question? 'Cause
Certainly.
This was new, Rob brought up last time, and I think this is something would get direction from town council on what we can and cannot do. But a basic question is, would the people in town have the rights to the open space or just the residents?
No. The whole concept of open space is the residents of the town would
Exactly.
have access
Yeah.
to
All right.
the open space.
All right.
On the other hand, to that point, Mr. Chairman, because there are some, I don't want to use the word treacherous, but some precarious areas in the subdivision, the steep grades leading down to the lake, there are some liability issues, and I think there need to be some control issues. I don't think you can allow people just to wander both into the protected wetlands and the dangerous areas. And I think the homeowners are in the best position to monitor the activity within the open space and make sure that there are no activities that either impede on the natural resources or expose the townspeople to danger. So absolutely the town would have access in the trail areas throughout the open space, but the homeowners association would in essence be monitoring it, paying for the improvements and the maintenance.
Thank you. I think actually it's a good idea. We have so many trails in town that aren't maintained by anybody, so.
Exactly.
The main concern I had was where the applicant gets benefits for an open space subdivision, the town should get benefits from that open space, which is the use of the open space. But if they maintain it, I think we can, if the board agrees for this type of arrangement, personally, I think maybe more sites might work well to have this, but someone that cares is maintaining the trails. But we can check with the town council and the formalities and the control of the funding and things like that. So the actual document would work.
Could I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Is that available? I'm Rob Kane, one of the applicants. Addressing the liability issue, this came up just in this past week, and we sent a plan to my insurance agent, but he was not able to get that to an underwriter and get a direct answer yet. So I'll have an idea about what kind of liability insurance will be subject to. So that'll be another topic that may or may not have to be addressed. Hopefully it won't be, onerous, amount per year for the association. But, and I think that really, what we were pointing out to them were the two trails at the end of the cul-de-sac and also having the water on the property. So
Walter just pointed to our regulation, bylaws actually, that allow this particular thing. Just mentioning that the planning board approves of the form of ownership, that's all. So it sounds great. We can do the homework to find out how the document should be worded legally, but do you folks have any comments on that?
I just want some clarification.
The whole
The
idea.
caveat of this is the $2,000 lot fee goes into an HOA coffer instead of the town's coffers. Is that basically the concept that
Yes.
we're, and so then they utilize the $2,000 per lot as a fund to maintain the open space.
So
That's
I
the
think-
general principle of this whole.
Yeah, I
okay.
think our question would be to have some type of discretionary control over how and when the funds are spent. I think that would be the biggest thing.
Which
Maybe
would-
some type of double signature or something, whatever.
Well,
Right. I think there needs to be, sort of dual, like almost dual beneficial ownership with,
Well, we're going to pass this all to town council. It
Right.
certainly isn't my purview, but
The
Which
concept in theory sounds good because someone that cares is going to maintain the open space
Yeah,
for
it
the
does.
public.
The question, though, about the $2,000, I don't know whether that's in our purview to do this.
We'll have to check and see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
fair
that's
enough.
something that's kind of.
Yeah, we'll check and see.
Okay.
What would the intent of the $2,000 per lot be? What was the original intent of that
To
money?
maintain
To maintain,
trails.
so it's
Right,
essentially
right.
the same thing, got it, okay.
Because truthfully, I didn't see any reference to that. Is that in the rules and regulations?
Yeah.
It's not in the bylaws. It's the rules and regulations of the planning board.
Zoning bylaws.
Bylaws.
Section.
It's in the zoning bylaws, the $2,000 per lot?
No, not the $2,000.
Oh.
No. Just the fact that we are allowed to consider the proposal.
Oh, right, no, I clearly know that's in the
So we can
bylaw.
look into that, but I think you're hearing that everybody, if the terms are worked out properly, would be receptive to that.
Okay. I think that we could probably work out the details in a satisfactory
Great.
manner.
Great.
But I do feel that it's a real win-win, because
sounds
no
like
one's
a-
going to care more
You can
than
check
the
on the
property
liability,
owners.
Rob, and let us know on that at one of the meetings, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
I think I'd mentioned at the last meeting, in the beginning, while the houses were under construction and we'd be funding the $2,000 a lot, there probably wouldn't be any real need to use that money. Once the houses are all sold, we'd still like for your overview, but there'd also be a yearly assessment made to the homeowners to pay for some of the maintenance along the roadways, cul-de-sac, and open space. So it wouldn't be just the $2,000 like you guys have for your town property. It would potentially be an ongoing thing that people in the homeowners association would contribute to themselves.
Okay,
Okay?
got it.
Thank you.
On the liability issue that you raised, it occurs to me that when we had that earlier discussion about access through that zigzag property, that at the end of that, there's, as somebody pointed out, there's a lot of steep slope down to the lake there. And so don't just worry about up the other end where the trails are, worry about that slope as well, because people can get in there, right?
Yes, absolutely, Walter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Since we don't have a peer review, we're going to just get some general questions from the board or our planner, Rich. And we can get together after we have the actual review of the stormwater and everything, okay? I myself looked at the plan this afternoon, and I think you did a great job of utilizing the development area and land that's already disturbed. I think taking out 3,000 cubic yards of net gravel on a site like this is real good. It's real low. So obviously you've worked to make this thing fit into the natural landscape. And I saw you eliminated some of the retention basins here. And I noticed that you've got a couple of curb outlets, but the rest of it will be monolithic berm to control the water coming down rather than going off the shoulder and undermining the roadway. So I think that those are all positive. But that being said, Rich, do you have any comments? I know you looked at the plan here.
I did. I would like to spend a little bit more time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Folks, any comments generally on the plan?
I do have, I would like to get the board's opinion.
Yeah, well.
Based upon Chief Bushnell's explicit comments that they would not use that cut-through, that we no longer refer to it as emergency access, and just refer to it as an access path or something, just based upon,
Right.
you know, everybody's concerned here about liability. It brings up just, you know, liability for the town, liability for the board, that it is no longer referred to as emergency access, and it is just an access path. I
Check
just
into that.
want-
I do know that even
going
though Cole doesn't want to go over anything but a paved road,
Right.
the fire chief, the police would
That's what I was
use something
thinking,
like this, which he mentioned to me. So we have one public safety that says he wouldn't, but
Okay,
One
okay, I
that
wasn't
would,
aware of
so-
the police chief's comments,
Yeah,
I just only know from
yeah.
Chief
right.
Bushnell's, but it's just, you know, an access between the two cul-de-sacs, from, you know, just to kind of dot that I right there for liability purposes.
Okay. Questions, good? You all set, Paul?
Yeah, I'm set, thank you.
Is anybody in the audience here for this filing? You folks have any questions? If you are, you're not. All right. All right, that being said, thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank
So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't know if you're interested or not, I have not as yet drafted the open space maintenance plan, but I have a couple thoughts that I wanted to incorporate it into the plan. Would you like me to share those with you, or do you want to defer until we submit something?
I would say that communication, if we think it's a good idea, and it sounds like we do, I think the construction of those documents should be between you and the town council.
Okay.
Because we really probably couldn't add much input.
Very well.
Then we can review it when it's all drafted, okay?
Very well.
All right,
Thank you.
Just one final comment just regarding this bus stop.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I just wanted you to have a
It's not
peek at that.
explicitly stated in the HOA maintenance agreement. I don't see bus stop anywhere here, but is it something that the HOA would?
Yes,
stand for?
that would in fact be part of the maintenance by the homeowners association. It is within the common area, yes.
That's it.
And just to address that, also, that was a sketch I did. I'm not claiming to be an artist. I found some stuff online about, site distances and what's a good idea for but long and short is I had a preliminary meeting with an architect that we hired for home design, and I proposed that they come up with something, and they have in-house engineers. So that's also in the process, so hopefully I'll have something, again, more definitive next month.
Okay, great. All right, so we can
Thank you.
continue this meeting until our next meeting, December 19th at 7:15. Going to move that motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
We'll see you
Aye.
folks then, okay?
Thank you very much for your time this
Yep.
evening.
Thank you.
Uh, 28 Cleveland Street, state lot permit, special permit? No. Yeah, leave with Betsy.
Everything
18 Cleveland Street?
28.
28, sorry. All right, do we have a microphone for this gentleman? Microphone?
Second chair back there.
It's not for us, it's for the folks at home who see this.
I'm Ken McKenzie from Dunn McKenzie. I'm here representing Corey Boyce as the applicant for the Pinkham residence at 28 Cleveland.
I'm sorry, let us open the public hearing first, I'm sorry.
I do have a clear
Kevin?
one. Yep. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass GL Section 40A and the Norfolk zoning bylaws E2H, that a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, November 29th, 2017 at 8 p.m. in room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass, relative to an estate lot application for property located at 28 Cleveland Street in Norfolk, Mass. 02056. The applicant is Corey Boyce, and the property is located in the R1 zoning district. Reference Assessor's Map 15, Block 54, Lot 28, showing a 194,176 square foot parcel.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you're all set.
Okay, what we've done here is we've set aside the existing house that's there. They did not want to tear it down and make two lots out of this because the house is in good shape. We've kept it with the garage they have. They have an existing septic here, the shed in the back, and they use all this area within here. So we kept that, and we put it at 51,000, which is over the 30,000 that's required in this zone. And the rest of the lot, what we've done is they didn't know where they wanted to put the house on this, so we did soils testing. We got great soils in the front here, and we got good soils up in the back. They're probably going to want to put a house up in this area, maybe a little off to the side here. This is a completely wooded, and it's a good estate lot if someone wants to, have animals in the yard, brought in the wooded areas. The build factors, we get a 3.98 on this and a 9.11 on the existing one that we did. And if we did a tear down on this, we probably could have done 2 lots within the state lot, but we don't want to tear the house down. It's a good-looking house. They've done a lot to it. It's in great shape. So they just want to cut the 1 lot off. They're close to retirement age, and they want to get rid of it.
Did you get the comments from our outside planner? PGC?
I don't know. Yes, I believe they did.
All right. Rich, did you review this A&R lot?
Do you have an extra?
No, I did
Oh,
not.
Gino's here. Gino, have a seat.
Is it an
Just in time. How are you?
We're just looking at 28 Cleveland Street, the A&R lot.
The estate lot?
State lot.
Right. I know.
Did you want to go through them one by one?
Sure.
Okay, the first one, the section E2, H2 and all, about 3 times the estate lot area, that's okay. Next one, requires minimum frontage of 50 feet, the lot meets that, that's okay. Third one. Okay. Third one, section E2, H2 requires that all buildings be located 50 feet from the property line. So we have the 50-foot setback all around the estate lot, which that meets. Section E2H2D requires compliance with Section E1C except E1C2 and E1D. The lot meets the requirements in the E1C1 frontage of 50 feet in the setback line. In the E1C4 required no building or buildings envelopes is shown. So compliance with even 6 for the proposed building setbacks, a greater distance than the minimum. And section E1D require front and rear side yards are not documented, though it appears it looks like it could be met. Yeah, there's plenty of land there. We don't know who's going to buy this, where they're going to want to build a house. I mean, we could have thrown houses on there, but they would have been moved around. There's a lot of areas they can fit. As long as you inside this dash line around, which is your setback, you could fit
So the
houses.
proposal is to sell a lot and let the new owner put the house, whatever they want up. Is that the idea?
Yes, it is, and the type of house they want.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, that's why we tested in 2 areas, if they wanted to make sure they could get it.
Yep.
I mean, it's 4.4 acres. It's a good-sized lot, plenty of room for a house there.
Yeah, I didn't think that was too much of a problem, but the other issue was the potential driveway and demonstrating that it meets the grades and has a sight distance and that sort of thing. That was missing.
Yes, there's plenty of sight distance on the road, up and down either way. We're on the outside of the curve. This comes up, you can see 500 feet plus up the road, and this way it's probably 900 feet you can see. It goes down across the power lines. It's a straight open view right down. The driveway will come in on this side here. This is the only way. And it's fairly gradual going up. It dips and it just rolls up. It's not steep. We have not done topography on the lot. The client asked us not to do it yet, and we haven't got that far on it, but there's no problem getting driveways with slopes or anything there, sight distances.
So basically, is he down to administrative adjustments on the plan to make it work, Gino?
Yeah, that's it. I think it meets generally all the requirements. The only thing is that missing information, which is not, doesn't mean it doesn't meet it, it's just not shown on the
So
plan.
we should have the plan adjusted for the missing information before we sign it?
That would be
Right.
my suggestion.
So you want the topography done, and you want the sight
At least-
distances on the plan?
Yeah, at least, like, the entrance, not necessarily an entire driveway, but if you just show the entrance off the main street, going back, I don't know, 50 or 100 feet, whatever the board would be comfortable with.
and show the site distance, and I think you're complete.
And not really have to do the topography on the whole house?
No.
The whole area? Okay.
No, I think that could wait till the building permit stage.
Okay. That's no problem. We can do that.
You folks have any other questions or comments?
Is there any? That was really
John,
the issue all the way
issue
down.
with the butters on the other side of the back side of the lot?
What about that?
Is there any issue with the abutters on the other side, on the back side of the lot?
We'll be asking them next.
Okay.
Or for-
Sorry, jumping the gun.
It's a long night. So you can make those adjustments and...
Yes, we will.
Okay. Folks in the audience here for this filing at 28 Cleveland Street, anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am?
Yes, I'm one of the abutters.
Take the microphone, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Hi, yes, I'm one of the abutters on the backside.
What's your name, ma'am, for the
My name
record?
is Jennifer Putt, and I'm at 27 Village Green,
Okay.
which is the north, whatever that top corner is.
Right.
My question, I have a couple of questions, and I'm very naive to this, but if you can define what an estate plot is, and then my next question is, if I understand correctly, this is just to sell the land, and then it would be up to whoever buys it to then come across in terms of development. You talk about maybe one house. I'm concerned that this may be multiple houses, so maybe you can address that question.
Well, an estate lot is a lot that doesn't meet the frontage requirements for zoning, but it does have to have 50 feet, which this does. And then it has to have, I believe, is it 3 times the square footage of the lot? So that being said, where he's getting a qualification for a one buildable lot with limited frontage. As far as what he does from that point, I think that's an unknown at this particular stage. I think in theory, someone could take that 50-foot area and put a roadway in there, or apply to put a roadway in there if it worked with a little cul-de-sac with perhaps 2, I don't know, but at this stage, but if they were gonna do that, it wouldn't make sense to go through this estate permit process anyway, so all we can assure now that this meets the requirements for a special permit for a state lot, which is one buildable lot.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Anybody else? All right, hearing no other questions. Hearing no other questions, then why don't you update the plan to meet Gino's requirements, and we'll get you on for next week and have it voted on, so you'll be all set, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Very good, so we can see him. What time is our first appointment? 7.
The first appointment is at 7.
Who's at 7?
Sherwood Drive.
All right, why don't we put them at 7:05, just in case they extend again, so we don't have them wait all night, just to endorse the plan, okay?
Okay, this is a public hearing, so you're going to close the hearing, or are you going to continue it?
We're going to keep the hearing open,
Okay, you have to continue
unless anybody
it.
else wants to close it, I guess I'll...
No, I think we should keep it open.
Keep it open? All right, so we're going to keep it open, Betsy, so we'll need a motion to continue to December 19th at 7:05 PM.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we'll see you then when you get the approved plan to us earlier so we can have Gino review it.
Sure.
Very good, thank you. (1618) Sharon Ave, site plan. You're on again, Kevin.
Got it. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass GL Section 40A and the Norfolk zoning bylaws, Section F11, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, November 29th, 2017 at 8:30 p.m. in room 124 at Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass. And relative to a site plan application for property located at 16 and 18 Sharon Avenue, lots 11 and 12 Shire Industrial Park in Norfolk, Mass. The applicant, Michael Sosi of A&A Sosi LLC, Franklin, Massachusetts, is proposing construction of a new 8,358 square foot contractor's headquarter building with associated parking and utilities. The applicant is also requesting a stormwater management permit. The property is located in the C1 zoning district, reference Assessor's Map 18, Block 69, Lot 4115 and 4116. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
All set.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Again, for the record, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants. Mr. Chairman, I do have some plans if the board would like to have those.
Yes, to refresh our memory.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Betsy, could you go to the little colored up plan I sent over this afternoon? Please? Hope I spelled color right. It looked like C-O-L-E-R, but anyway.
No, you spelled it right.
I did. See, I need my glasses. Mr. Chairman, I put together this colored up plan just so that I could go through the site with the board. As the board may recall, this site had come in earlier 2017 to obtain a permit for outdoor storage, which is located here in the orange area, as well as a driveway that was proposed connecting Sharon Ave, the site on the abutting lot that the applicant has previously developed, as well as a driveway area, a parking area here. So those components were previously permitted. The applicant has requested, after further thought and finalization of the building, that we flip this driveway so that the parking is now facing the building as opposed to facing the open space. So that's why I colored that in a different color, so that I could go over that with the board. So what we're really looking at now is the construction of the building, construction of the access to the building, some additional parking spaces here, and an additional parking space located in this area here. Excuse me, Betsy, now if you could go back to the other drawings, I believe page 2.
Why do you want to flip the parking in that dark gray area?
They were just looking to have it closer to the building. Since they're not going to have any access back there, any overhead doors or anything, they just thought it would be better to bring it closer to the building than have it further back.
Okay.
So, excuse me, I apologize. So this is the combined site of both lots 11 and lot 12. As you can see, the building and development that took place on lot 12, existing storage area here, which has been extended, parking area connection has been made. If you go into the next page, Betsy, please, number 3. So this gives you an idea of the parking layout that's being proposed on lot 11. As I said, connection will be made so that both lots will be able to provide access across. The applicant is proposing to utilize this building for his business. He's grown to the point where he needs additional space. He is currently leasing space within the industrial park now and wants to have his whole organization, basically in one location, more centralized. Excuse me, Betsy, could you please go to, thank you. So this is the grading and utility plan. We had previously proposed a stormwater collection system, which consisted of a swale at the low end of the outdoor storage area that connected to a drain manhole. This catch basin has been relocated due to the swapping of the turnaround and parking spaces. The run has actually been shortened by about 5 feet. We've run out to the front. We have the 2 proposed catch basins that we originally had at the site driveway, and we've added a catch basin location here that'll capture the stormwater from the front parking area here. and we made some slight grading revisions in here to accommodate the stormwater flow to those front catch basins from this parking area here. The site will be serviced by a septic system, which will be part of the Shire Park wastewater system. The stormwater system will also connect into the stormwater system for the roadway, which is consistent with this project. When this industrial park development was proposed, it provided for 80% lot coverage, impervious coverage for all of the lots. That was accommodated for within the stormwater piping system within the roadways, excuse me, as well as within the detention infiltration basins, so that all these lots were able to discharge to the roadway system. We have proposed the water quality unit to be located here to treat all the stormwater from the parking lot system. The stormwater will then go to the manhole here, and connection will be made with the roof drains to that manhole before it ultimately discharges into the site stormwater system. Excuse me. And the site will have, the building will have 2 water connections, one for domestic and one for a fire suppression system. Connections are proposed within the street for that, coming up along this side of the building here. To accommodate vehicles within the building, an industrial wastewater holding tank has also been proposed. The industrial wastewater holding tank and septic system components will be prepared on a separate plan and filed with the Board of Health for their review and approval prior to going for process for a building permit. So we are in the process of working on that now. I do know the board has letters from the fire chief, I believe, and also from the Board of Health agent. So, Betsy, if you could go to the next page. One more, please. That's the stormwater pollution prevention plan. I don't think anyone wants to see that. We have provided a landscaping plan. That's some street trees and shrubs located in the island here, as well as here. Proposed trees here. We realize the lack of tree planting that's taken place within the industrial park and did want to add some trees along the street. Have some plantings proposed along the building here, in the islands here and here, and a tree back here. We're proposing for some mulch beds, around the site to minimize turf lawn areas. The plantings, we believe, comply with the bylaw requirements with respect to parking space, percentage of green space, etc. And are fairly consistent with what was done on the other property as well. So those are the basic highlights, and again, the board has issued some permits with respect to this site. Board's, a special permit was issued for outdoor storage. Special permit was issued for parking of more than 3 commercial vehicles on the site. For the site to be used as a contractor's yard. All of those permits were issued. We do have a special permit application before the Board of Appeals to allow for front yard parking. And we'll be meeting with them in a week and a half or so. I think it's December 6th. We have a meeting scheduled with the board. I know the Design Review Board had taken a preliminary look at the site lighting, and the building plans, and we're awaiting a meeting with the DRB to have the architect involved with them with respect to colors and details.
Betsy, who does have a peer review for this?
No, PSC. PSC.
So we haven't got their report yet?
Not
right?
yet.
All right, so we'll be reviewing all of the stormwater thing in the next meeting, along with the landscape plan in more depth. Hopefully we'll have the design review by that time, but just based on the basic layout, I know you folks had this when they had the parking special permit. Any comments on the basic layout of the lot?
Do we require a curb cut?
Right, yes.
We do.
Right, yep.
Largely in compliance. When we saw the first half of the site 11, we asked you for your thoughts and planning around the entire site, thinking that this might be coming.
Correct.
And so actually that curb cut and the way the traffic flow in that island was constructed was in thinking of this as a larger comprehensive development, so
Correct.
it's in keeping with I
Correct.
think, our original intent.
That's why I wanted to take the
Amazing
original
how
plan.
fast that went, though, huh?
I don't know why they didn't do it all at
That's-
once.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know?
That's exactly what
I
I'm
could be
thinking.
home now in bed.
Me too.
You know? But here I am, here you are.
Any
No, I mean,
Any comments on this from anybody on the board?
There's no, just to refresh my memory, there's no sidewalks in here, right?
there is a sidewalk.
There
yeah.
is?
Yeah, I believe it's on the other side, one
Okay.
sidewalk on the
All
inner
right,
loop.
okay.
Can I say we did get something from PSC today? But page
No,
two-
that's from the Board of Health agent.
Board of Health.
PSC is also the town's Board of Health agent.
These refer, it's in our packet, so and it's regarding the site, but it also starts talking about, on the second page, Medway Street and Lake Street, so. It's a comment from Board of Health, but it seems like some. It doesn't seem relevant to the project.
Oh, maybe I put the wrong one in there.
Well, it has, it's like combining two, I
Well,
think.
this site connects up to wastewater and stormwater as part of the
Yes.
subdivision anyway, so.
Yes.
We did get an email from PSC that had both their review of the Medway Street project and this project.
Maybe that's what
So
it's
it-
combining.
Yeah, I could have put the second
Combined.
page in.
I think that maybe, second page of the other one with this, yeah, that looks like what happened.
Is anybody in the audience here for this filing on 1618 Sharon Street? No questions, okay. Why don't we continue this until our next meeting when we have the peer,
12/19
we
at
have the
8 p.m.
peer review. Can someone make that motion to continue, 12/19, 8 p.m.?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Rick, we'll see you then.
All right, thank you.
We have two A&R plans to endorse, 17 Hampton Road and 113 North Street. Did you look at those, Gino?
I looked at North Street, yes.
All right, yeah.
I looked at Hampton Road.
Any issues with those?
No, first.
Hampton Road.
So Hampton Road, they did make the changes that are requested in the plan.
Good, so you're all set with
So I'm
that?
all set with it, yes.
And then you on North Street, Gino?
I think it was
So the
okay.
one, I can jump in for you if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one on 113 North Street, there was discussions with the building commissioner about the two dwellings on the one lot, and he did want to speak to town council about that. First, to report back, I know you raised the issue in your report.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we hold off on, would that affect the signing of the A&R, or is that a secondary issue?
It was not filed.
No, I think it would affect could possibly affect.
All right, so we'll hold off on the,
I think though, because of the time, it wasn't filed with town clerk.
It
But
was
even-
not, it
but
was
he-
not filed with
It
town
could be
clerk.
filed with town clerk before the next meeting. Oh, no, it's no 19 days from now, isn't it? Anyway.
why don't we ask the applicant for an extension?
Yeah, that would be the safest.
You do that, Betsy?
Yep.
All right, so we will hopefully have that worked out with the building inspector by the next meeting, and we can vote on it then. In the meantime, we can vote on 17 Hampton Road to approve that A&R plan. We'll endorse it after on.
Do we have to do two votes, one to approve it and one to endorse it, or did we already approve it?
I think just to endorse it.
Just to endorse it. I move that we endorse the A&R plan for 17 Hampton Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll sign that. You get the Mylar, Betsy?
Yep.
All right, we'll sign the way out. And it's just a little in-house thing. We need a motion to assign our new planner, Richard McCarthy, as the agent for the planning board, which gives him rights such as approving applications for their completeness, the ability to sign A&R plans on his own, amongst much else. I think that pretty much covers
No,
it.
that covers it.
All right, so if I could have a motion to approve Rich McCarthy as the agent for the planning board?
Motion to assign Town Planner Richard McCarthy as agent for the planning board per rules and regs for subdivision and land section 6.1.1.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, congratulations.
Yep.
So Rich, when did you officially start?
13th of November?
All right, so last we've got the site plan review for 18 Union Street. So assuming that everybody agrees with all of those amendments, does anybody else have any questions on the
We've been
approval?
We've been through them.
All right, Betsy, do you have a, if we vote on this, do you have a signature page?
Just check and see if I printed a signature page.
Just a question, John. As it pertains to the primary plan versus the alternate plan, how does that figure into what we're doing right now?
I don't see that anywhere in the decision.
Yeah.
Is that in there,
I
Gino?
thought it was in there. I thought it was in there. Yeah, it's in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
there's a condition that says the alternate plan shall be used.
If approved by town meeting?
Yeah.
Right. And it's on the warrant. It's on the warrant for the town meeting next week.
And you still would have to get a clearance on the updating landscape because of the connection of the sidewalk. They have to come back, and it's something they couldn't do right now, but they were going to come back, I believe. Is that right, Gino, Walter?
Yeah, they were gonna come back with
the final landscape plan as they make that connections and based on where exactly the driveway was coming in.
Okay.
So it'll still sit at, right?
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? No, all set. All right, I would make a motion to approve the site plan application, decision number 2017-05 for 18 Union Street as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we could, do you have a back page?
Yeah, I just gotta go print up. Did you do both the special permit and the site plan?
No, we did the site plan.
Have to do the earth removal too.
Excuse me. Could I get a little clarity on 113 North Street, on what they're waiting on? Is it council?
Yeah.
The building commissioner, yeah, so the 113 North Street was forwarded to the building commissioner because of the issue of the two dwellings on one lot.
Yes, they've been there since 1937.
Why don't you check with the commissioner
Okay.
sometime
I
during the
wasn't
week,
aware of
okay?
this, no.
Okay, very good.
And I just didn't understand what the...
All right, check with him, he's the one that brought the comments up, so
Okay.
work that out with him for the next time, okay? You're welcome. Michelle, you want to give us a motion to approve both the earth removal permit and the special permit 06?
Move to approve the special permit application decision number 2017-06 for 18 Union Street as amended.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we just have the earth removal permit.
To approve the earth removal permit and notice of decision for 18 Union Street. I don't believe there were any amendments on that one, so as is.
Well, there was something I passed on to Betsy, that the way it was written, paragraph F and paragraph J were the same thing, so they were redundant.
Put as amended then, just to cover
Yeah.
us.
As amended then.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have minutes for the meeting of October 25th.
Both Walter and I had eyes on them already, so I'm pretty sure they're in a pretty good spot, so.
Any changes? You can make a motion to approve the minutes, Kevin.
I move to approve the minutes for the meeting on Wednesday, October 25th, 2017.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we got to do abstain. No?
Yes. Anything else for us, Betsy or Rich?
Yeah, I did want to, we did get, Bob McIntymus was here earlier from the Design Review Board.
Yeah.
And I think, did the board get a memo? There was a letter from the Design Review Board.
For 18 Union?
And
in our packet for 18
Yeah,
Union?
not for 18 Union, actually.
I think that's all we have from DRB.
It's this one here, Rich, that you're looking for?
Yeah, there's a, yes. That's right. So one of the items on here is relative to the B1 zone where you had earlier tonight, where you had the commercial with the residential not attached to the building. One of the things that was raised in this memo to the board is potentially the development of design guidelines for that type of development scenario, if it were to occur.
Not really, I don't think.
What's that?
I don't think that's what they were asking, is it?
Well, there's one thing about the design guidelines, but then I'll go down further.
Okay, fair
Okay? But probably the meat of it, I would suggest to you, is whether, the idea of having mixed use whereby the residential units are not attached, they're not all within one building, if that is in fact the intent of the bylaw.
Is this for 194 Main Street?
Well,
It goes, it's not, it's broad, it's a broad question.
The issue, I think, is predates your arrival, so I think what we're talking about is the housing production plan and the element of the follow-up that said, within the B1 district, we need to consider the possibility of not mixed use with residences above or commercial with residences in another part of the lot, but rather a standalone multifamily residence only. And if we're going to do that, one of the things we need was a set of design guidelines for that construction. And I was the one who brought that to the board and got the board to agree to give the design review board the request to develop design guidelines for a multifamily residence within the B1 district, assuming that it would be accompanied by a zoning bylaw change, which would have to go in front of town meeting at some point down the road. And so that's what I think they were poking at.
But in that instance, you're talking about a multifamily development that's just residential.
Right, exactly.
In B1, this is not just residential. This is residential mixed with commercial, but bisecting the two and putting the commercial here and the residential there.
Oh, no, or just having a lot that's got a multifamily residence on
About
it.
what? No, this is just generally, the housing production plan, years ago, we talked about to create.
Oh, I'm confused, sorry.
To create 40B units.
Yeah.
Taking some of the lots in the downtown areas, how I remember it, and making them allowed to be quads, fourplexes, where as a result that one would be rented at affordable rates and all four would count. And they'd be walking distance to the center of town, et cetera. And that was pushed aside 10 years ago, and now the housing plan is bringing it up. So there was a lot of resistance way back then when I was on the Affordable Housing Committee, but right now, if people decide that we want to have some of these units have this type of setup, where does it go? I don't think anybody wants a residential building right in the limited Main Street commercial zone that we have. It sort of defeats the purpose of having it downtown. I think we're more talking about anywhere from back on Boardman Street, that triangle there, all the way down to the lower B1 district where we have dense housing allowed anyway. So if we ever decided we wanted to take a section of town and add a zone to make something like this possible, then we'd need guidelines to make these four families, for example, look like a one family from the outside. You can, on this errand, just so it doesn't look like apartment buildings of four, have something that is residentially tasteful, like a single family, so it blends in, but still give the town the opportunity to have units count towards our affordable goal. And in theory, in this general downtown area, they would be an access to the center of town for shopping and train. So that was the broad concept. I think that the challenge might be really where do you designate a zone like this? And like Michelle and I think we agree that it wouldn't be right in the center of town where you want retail for the folks to walk to. Right now they have the mixed use allowable with the residential on top, but at least there's a retail component. We're talking about something a little different around town where there are single family homes maybe in disrepair, and the opportunity to change zoning in that area and give them the opportunity to make that into a 4-family. You'd need setback rules, etc., and make that architecturally unique so it didn't look like a 4-family unit. That was the general concept. And wasn't that what the housing plan basically talked about, Walter?
The housing plan didn't get any of those details. They just said, you ought to think about it.
Right.
And so,
because they're proposing a zone.
No, they were saying specifically the town center. They didn't say whether it was within or without the B1 or within the core B1 or the lower B1. They just said within the town center and told us to wrestle with those issues and figure out what we wanted to do.
The plan was very generalized.
Very generalized. This is the set of action steps that came with that housing plan.
Right.
And numbers 1 and 3 dealt with this topic.
And a lot of it we've already worked on and actually have some in place. But
if we follow the logic through on that, the point of the housing plan is to create a development plan for the center of town.
No, it's an affordable housing plan,
Yeah.
really, for the whole town.
It's townwide.
But one of the elements that could support that was to think about putting multifamilies somewhere close by here.
one of the comments in the plan, I think, Aaron, talked about the need for rentals for senior folks around town. There wasn't really any market for somebody senior or unlimited income to rent space. So they're more talking about accommodating some of these things in the whole population dynamics of the breakup of the town. Wanted to know if we could service some of these areas where there's a need. And like I said, one of them was for rentals in that older demographic. So based on that, you assume that folks at that age would want to be nearer the downtown, nearer the train, nearer the senior center. So is there an area where we could incorporate that with the town go for it?
And the design guidelines that were discussed in very general terms were pointed at the idea that John raised, which is some building that's standalone, multifamily housing in the general vicinity of downtown here to support smart growth, if you will. And didn't go any further than that in terms of definition, I don't believe.
Yeah, yeah.
So the design review board would come up with specifications if we ever had a zone like that and it ever passed, so it was possible, what type of architectural details would be incorporated through the special permit process so these would be approved. So I think we're still at an early stage
We
where...
are, very much so, yeah. By the way, are you still a member of the design review board, or have you decided to just be a member of?
I am still a member.
Still a member, okay.
As far as I understand, there's no conflict there, so.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either, but.
I missed the meeting that we talked about this last week, so.
Sure.
All right.
The housing production plan is available on the town's website, so if you want to grab it and take a look at it, it's available.
Has the board all reviewed the final product and?
Yeah, we voted on it.
We voted on it.
It's been accepted by the state.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I do want to ask about some things that you would want to, so coming at the point, we want to think about potential zoning for next year, the spring. Is there anything that the board kind of sees as anything priority-wise that you would like to try to look to tackle for next year coming up? I know I've had some contact, I know with the Board of Appeals had asked to take a look at the sign bylaw. There's one area that could use a little bit of work. I don't know if there was anything else.
Just a suggestion. Your predecessor, as he was wrestling with all of these books, kept kind of a running list of things he wanted to do had he stuck around. phone call to him might engender, hey, here's 3 things I was gonna do, but I left, you know, and so that's a thought.
Even had created a document that we were kind of gradually working our way through in terms of potential changes that we might want to make. And we started with the easy ones, and even at that, we got not very far down the list.
Isn't there like a handful of
Betsy,
things?
do we have 3 signed sheets or
Aren't
2?
there like a handful of things?
Two
that we
special
generally
two special permits and a site plan?
One special permit and a
Like
site plan.
parking lot striping.
What about earth removal?
Reflectiveness, like that kind of stuff. Aren't those things that we can just kind of wash out of there?
Yeah, that might be a nice idea. Look at sort of waivers that continue
Yeah,
to
we
come
can-
up.
We could look at just common waivers that we,
Come up time and time.
Berm type of things, or the reflective paint on parking lot striping and stuff like that. Just so we don't have to deal with, I mean, if we're just sort of, we always grant that, then maybe we look at rewriting those things just to either have them as multiple options where you can have this or this, depending on what you guys, want, or just replace it with what we generally grant, just to save us a lot of time.
I'll give Ray a call. I think that's a great suggestion. I'll talk to him.
Well, to remind me, Ray at one point had looked at creating a special district in the center of town in an effort to plan for a higher density development in the downtown location rather than spread throughout town. Part of this was through the housing production plan and some of the affordable housing conversations the town's been having. I don't remember where that conversation went.
Frankly, I'm sorry, I don't remember the conversation itself, so I don't remember him talking about creating a new district. No, I don't. He may have, but I
think he had mentioned it like that was something that would help mitigate where we would put things like 106, 108 Main Street, or like the high density, smaller units and stuff like that, creating different zoning, like maybe like along the train tracks and stuff like that, so we can funnel things like 40Bs to those types of properties rather than where they're ending up on places like Cleveland Street and Boardman. Well, Boardman's like right along the train tracks, but when they start to get further out into the community, into obviously where people don't seem to want them. He always had this idea of creating sort of an area district along main busy roads, along the train tracks, where we can funnel those types of developments, high density developments.
I
mean, that was just
swear I saw a diagram at one point where he thought those boundaries might be. Maybe I can dig it up in my files. But I thought that's what the residential design guidelines were heading towards, where part of not only setting the zone, but setting guidelines on what the development would be there, so that it was sort of pre-approved, so that it was easier to get 40B type projects approved where we wanted them rather than.
Well, it's not a bad idea to think about. When we were discussing this issue in the housing production plan, we didn't go there. We were just talking about what can we do with what we've got for existing districts, and how could we amend the zoning to allow multifamily within B1. That's really what we were talking about.
But the core of what you're saying is accurate, is that the intent was to be able to streamline the approval process by outlining exactly what the template should look like.
Yeah. It was just another, a multifamily building with 4 or 6 residences in it, whatever. Just another tool to get towards the 10% of affordable housing. That was the objective.
I have 2 just history questions. Maybe we can close the meeting and I can talk to them, or I can ask them now, whichever. I don't know what the right procedure is. One of them has to do with the history on the open space plan versus the as-of-right development of Cranberry Estates. And the other one is the connection of the cul-de-sacs versus not connecting the cul-de-sacs. Just in terms of the history of the conversations the board's had.
All right, why don't we close out, and then we can just talk openly.
Yeah,
sure.
Any questions? Motion to
Adjourn?
adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set.
I need a 5-minute break. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I did too.